The Mediterranean island of Malta enjoys a close relationship with Britain. Its entire population was awarded the George Cross for its bravery and support during the Second World War. Halfway between the Straits of Gibraltar and the Suez Canal, the island was the perfect stopping-off point for British imperial troops throughout the 20th century, and seedy tales about its fleshpots still circulate among our armed forces today. This is a place which over the past 5,000 years has been invaded and ruled by Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Normans, Sicilians and Habsburgs, and most of them have left their mark on the island's architecture. Yet Juliet Rix, who knows it well, says Malta's not just a place which is stuck in the past.
Entering Valletta, the tiny fortified capital of Malta, always gives me a buzz. It's a 16th century city built in the local honey-coloured limestone by the Knights of St. John. They'd nearly lost this Mediterranean island to the Ottoman Turks in the Great Siege of 1565, and their new capital was built for impregnability, its awe-inspiring fortifications breached only by a single bridge and city gate. As I arrived in Valletta this time, however, the buzz was a little different. As I crossed the bridge over the deep defensive ditch, the bastion walls on either side glowed with newly restored freshness, and ahead of me, emerged from a couple of years of dust and hoardings, stood Citygate, tall, smooth, proud, and unquestionably 21st century. The entrance to Valletta and the square just inside it, long degraded by World War II bombing and post-war neglect, have been dramatically redesigned by Renzo Piano, the innovative Italian architect of the London Shard, a controversial choice for a UNESCO World Heritage City. When the project was first made public, I have to admit that I thought it would never happen. Malta is, or just possibly was, instinctively conservative. The Maltese are exceptionally politically engaged. The turnout at general elections here is around 90%, and they love a good argument, and this project has provided plenty of material for that. But innovation is another matter. The Maltese are not generally known for speedy forward motion, except behind the wheel of their beloved cars. I fully expected this audacious project to remain a footnote in Valletta's architectural history. There is no doubt, however, about what I see before me. The great limestone slabs of Valletta's modern entrance give on to two broad new monumental stairways leading up onto the ancient fortifications. In the square, a modern open-air theatre sits within the remains of the nation's 19th century opera house, and, nearing completion, held aloft on stone stilts, stands Malta's first purpose-built parliament. This is certainly statement architecture, and that is exactly what former Prime Minister and driving force behind the project, Dr. Lawrence Gonzi, intended. I meet the besooted Dr. Gonzi at the legal practice to which he has returned since leaving politics, and we sit in its appropriately modern interior within an historic Valletta townhouse. Dr. Gonzi led Malta into the EU and the Euro, and tells me that he wanted to show that whilst his country was rooted in its history, it was also, as he puts it, transforming the historical inheritance into a modern outlook in an island ambitious for the future. Even he, though, has been taken by surprise by how far that change in outlook has already swept. As a nationalist, in British terms a conservative, Dr. Gonzi never expected to oversee a social revolution. When a private member's bill pushed him into calling a referendum on the legalisation of divorce, he promised to vote against, fully expecting that the Maltese people would do the same. To his amazement, this 98% Catholic country, for centuries held in the tight embrace of the Church of Rome, voted to allow divorce. What is more, this year, under Dr. Gonzi's Labour successor, same-sex civil partnerships have been introduced, something quite unthinkable just a few years ago. And the official statistics now show that the proportion of Malta's babies born out of wedlock has reached 1 in 4. Over coffee, I ask a Maltese friend what he thinks about this. Having a child outside marriage is something my parents' generation and even my generation would disapprove of, he says. But once the baby is born, the family always rallies round the mother and child. At the end of the day, he adds, I think the Maltese are more interested in the fertility goddess than the Virgin Mary. EU membership, EU money, increased travel, and most of all internet connectivity are driving a shift towards more liberal values. What about abortion, I asked Dr. Gonzi. Could that too be legalised? No, he says firmly. Then pauses. But then I would have said the same about divorce less than 5 years ago. So is Malta turning into Sweden or the UK? Absolutely not, insists Dr. Gonzi. Malta was a mini-EU even 500 years ago, he says. The knights came from every part of Europe, and were followed by Napoleon and the British. The Maltese took the best of what each had to offer, but always remained Maltese, and they will now too. As I walk back to Citygate, the facades to either side of me are both of local limestone. A traditional Valletta palazzo, its characteristic wooden balconies freshly painted, now looks across at the 21st century geometry of the new Parliament. The modern building's detractors call it the pigeon roost or the cheese grater, but others are impressed by the way that, by and large, the development manages to be quite different from its historic surroundings and yet respectful of them. If Malta can follow that as a model for social change, it will be doing better than most.
Juliet Rix there.